What happened when the undercover CEO decided to step into the shoes of his employees? In this story, Alex, the CEO of a struggling fitness center chain, goes undercover to uncover the truth behind the mounting complaints and staff frustrations. What he discovers about mismanagement, neglect, and broken promises will shock you. Through this eye-opening journey, Alex learns valuable lessons about leadership, accountability, and the importance of staying connected with the people who drive your business. Stay tuned to see how one CEO's bold decision leads to a complete transformation. Alex, the CEO of a growing chain of fitness centers, inherited the business from his father with big dreams of expanding its reach and impact. However, despite the chain's success in its early years, recent customer reviews and employee feedback have raised serious concerns. Complaints about dirty equipment, unmotivated staff, and broken-down facilities have begun to tarnish the gym's reputation. Alex had always trusted his regional manager, Brad, who assured him that everything was running smoothly. According to Brad, the complaints were just from a few dissatisfied customers and nothing to worry about. But as the negative reviews kept mounting, Alex began to question whether he had been too complacent, relying solely on reports filtered by his manager. The once thriving business seemed to be falling apart, and Alex knew he had to do something to get to the bottom of it. Realizing that he couldn't rely on secondhand reports any longer, Alex decided to go undercover. He wanted to experience firsthand what was really happening at one of his gym locations. With this decision, Alex was not only about to see the problems through the eyes of an employee, but was also determined to uncover the full scope of mismanagement and neglect that had been festering under his nose. This would be the first step in a long journey of change for his business, one that would challenge everything Alex thought he knew about leadership and management. As the weeks went on, Alex couldn't ignore the growing pile of complaints and negative reviews flooding in about his fitness centers. What had once been a flourishing business now seemed to be in a downward spiral. The complaints were no longer isolated incidents. They were frequent and consistent. Gym members were posting online about dirty, broken equipment, unsanitary bathrooms, and unhelpful staff members. Even worse, his most loyal customers were beginning to speak out, saying they would not renew their memberships if conditions didn't improve. When Alex checked the company's internal reports, they seemed optimistic, but he noticed that these reports didn't match the tone of the complaints. His regional manager, Brad, had continued to reassure him that the complaints were just a few outliers, unsatisfied customers who were never happy no matter what. According to Brad, there was nothing to worry about, but Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The tension between the reports and reality was impossible to ignore. He had always prided himself on being hands-on in his business, but lately, he'd been too busy expanding and delegating to truly pay attention to what was happening in the gyms. Alex began to question his own role as CEO. Was he missing something? How much had he overlooked in his trust of Brad's assurances? His gut told him that the situation was worse than it appeared on paper. When he spoke to the gym staff, their responses were vague, but there was an unmistakable undercurrent of dissatisfaction and frustration. They spoke of being overworked, underpaid, and dealing with broken equipment with no help from management. The more Alex heard, the clearer it became this wasn't just a few bad apples, it was systemic. The management team was failing to address real issues, and the staff was suffering because of it. Alex knew something had to change, but he had to see it with his own eyes to fully understand the scale of the problem. He couldn't rely on filtered reports anymore. He needed to step into the shoes of his employees and experience the situation for himself. Determined to get to the root of the problems plaguing his fitness centers, Alex made the bold decision to go undercover. He realized that to truly understand what was going wrong, he needed to immerse himself in the daily life of the gyms, away from the filtered reports and reassurances from his regional manager, Brad. Alex decided to take on the role of a personal trainer, an entry-level position that would give him direct contact with both staff and gym members. He chose one of the worst-rated locations, a small gym on the outskirts of the city. This gym had been receiving the worst feedback, with complaints about the staff's lack of enthusiasm, the dilapidated condition of the equipment, and poor cleanliness. Alex knew this would be the perfect place to start. To avoid being recognized, he completely altered his appearance. He dyed his hair a lighter shade, added some subtle wrinkles with makeup, and wore ill-fitting clothes that made him look less like the CEO of a thriving business and more like an ordinary, out-of-place employee. He even changed his posture, slouching to seem less confident and more relatable. His new identity was Paul, a new hire sent by corporate for training. On his first day, Alex was greeted by a disinterested front desk manager who barely acknowledged him as he checked in. She handed him a uniform and directed him to meet with Maria, a seasoned housekeeper who would show him the ropes. Maria barely looked at him, too focused on her own work to care about the new hire. Alex introduced himself to her, carefully slipping into his role. He was handed a cleaning cart and was soon thrust into the chaos of gym maintenance and housekeeping. As he scrubbed bathrooms and swept the floors, Alex felt the physical toll of the work, but more than the exhaustion, what struck him was the sheer level of disorganization and discontent among the staff. They seemed defeated, tired, overworked, and disillusioned with management. Alex overheard several employees like Maria grumbling about being short-staffed and underpaid. They complained that management wasn't doing anything to help, and some even insinuated that Brad had been pocketing money meant for necessary repairs and staffing. Alex's stomach twisted as he realized just how deep the problems ran. He had always trusted Brad's reports, but now, hearing firsthand from the staff, it was clear that Brad had been lying to him for years. The gym was understaffed, equipment was in disrepair, and morale was at an all-time low. As the day wore on, Alex witnessed broken machines that had been patched together with duct tape, filthy floors that hadn't been properly cleaned in weeks, and staff members who were simply too exhausted to care anymore. Every complaint, every frustrated remark from the staff painted a clearer picture of the toxic work environment that had been allowed to fester. This wasn't just about bad management. It was a systemic issue, and Alex realized that the gym's problems were far more serious than he had initially thought. He knew he couldn't go back to his office and keep pretending everything was fine. He had to take action. On his first day at the gym, Alex was immediately struck by how different the reality was from what he had been told. As he walked through the door, he was met with the smell of stale air and the sight of worn-out equipment that looked like it had been patched up more times than he could count. The gym floor, once a place of energy and excitement, now felt dreary and neglected. The staff, who should have been the heart of the gym, appeared drained and defeated. Most of them were too busy with their overwhelming workload to offer a friendly greeting. Alex was introduced to the gym's staff, including Maria, a longtime housekeeper who seemed to carry the weight of the gym on her shoulders. She handed him a cart full of cleaning supplies, muttering that they were always short-staffed, and showed him the basics of maintaining the gym. As he followed her through the hallways, he noticed scuff marks on the walls and fraying carpets, clear signs of deferred maintenance. The bathrooms were in poor condition, with soap dispensers that didn't work and floors that hadn't been properly scrubbed in weeks. What struck Alex most, however, was the conversation he overheard between Maria and another housekeeper. They spoke openly about how management, particularly Brad, had been neglecting their concerns for months. They mentioned how they were constantly asked to do more with less, how supplies were scarce, and how Brad had been pocketing money meant for repairs and staffing. Alex felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had trusted Brad to manage things, but hearing the staff's frustration firsthand made him realize that there was more going on behind the scenes than he had been led to believe. As he continued to clean and maintain the gym alongside the staff, Alex's body began to feel the physical strain of the work, but it was the emotional weight of the situation that weighed most heavily on him. He had walked into the gym expecting to observe a few issues, but what he found was a systemic problem. One that had been festering for far too long. The employees were being pushed to their limits, and the gym itself was suffering because of it. Alex knew that if he didn't act quickly, the business could fall apart. As Alex continued his undercover role as a personal trainer, he began to engage more deeply with the gym's staff, hoping to uncover the truth behind the complaints he had overheard. He started with Maria, the housekeeper, who had shown him the ropes on his first day. She had been weary, but still managed to find time to explain the challenges they were facing. As they worked together, Alex could sense her exhaustion, not just from the physical labor, but from the emotional toll of working in an environment where she felt unappreciated and invisible. She told him about the overwhelming pressure the staff was under, constantly being asked to do more with less. "We're always understaffed," she said with a sigh as she scrubbed down yet another bathroom. "They won't hire more people, and when we ask, we're told there's no budget, but somehow management always finds money for things that don't matter." Alex nodded sympathetically, but his mind was racing. He had already suspected the mismanagement, but hearing it so directly from the employees confirmed his fears. As the day went on, Alex spoke with other staff members, including Chris, a young trainer who had only been working at the gym for a few months. Chris was eager to learn and seemed passionate about fitness, but it was clear that the gym's environment was slowly grinding him down. He spoke about the frustration of being asked to handle too many clients with too little support. "It's like they think we can just magically make people happy with no resources. Clients keep complaining about broken machines and dirty floors, and then I get the blame," he explained. "It's like no one in management cares enough to make things right." Listening to Chris's frustration, Alex could see the ripple effect of bad management, low morale, burnout, and a lack of motivation. But what struck him most was how the staff had accepted these conditions as normal, as though it was just the way things were meant to be. He felt a growing sense of responsibility to change that. Later, Alex met with Jack, the maintenance worker, who had been trying to fix broken equipment with limited resources. Jack revealed that many of the repairs had been deferred because Brad, the regional manager, had been slashing the maintenance budget in favor of other, less essential expenses. "We're just patching things up, making it look good for the guests," Jack said bitterly, his hands stained with grease. "But nothing ever gets fixed properly. When something breaks, it's like we're supposed to just ignore it." Jack's words struck a chord with Alex. The gym wasn't just poorly run, it was being actively neglected by the very people in charge of overseeing its success. As Alex continued to converse with the staff, he felt a growing sense of guilt for not having noticed the signs sooner. He had been so focused on expanding the business and delegating responsibilities that he had failed to see how bad things had gotten. The staff wasn't just dissatisfied. They were being mistreated, overworked, and underpaid. Alex realized that the issues were more than just poor management. They were a failure of leadership. If he wanted to turn things around, he would need to step up and be the leader they needed, not just the figurehead of a successful business. As Alex spent more time undercover, it became impossible to ignore the depth of mismanagement that had seeped into every corner of the gym. The more he interacted with the staff, the clearer it became that the gym's issues were systemic, and Brad, the regional manager, was at the heart of it all. Alex's conversations with employees revealed just how much the staff was suffering: overworked, underpaid, and demoralized. The gym's equipment was in disrepair and maintenance was continually ignored, all because Brad had been slashing budgets and prioritizing profits over the well-being of his employees and the gym's infrastructure. One of the most shocking revelations came from Jack, the maintenance worker, who explained how repairs were often put off due to a lack of funds, even though Brad was aware of the deteriorating condition of the gym. "We just patch things up, make it look good enough for guests," Jack had said with frustration. But nothing ever gets fixed properly. The more Alex learned, the more he realized that Brad's focus wasn't on running a quality gym. It was on cutting costs and hiding the cracks beneath the surface. This revelation hit Alex hard. He had trusted Brad for years, believing the man's reassurances and assuming that the reports he received were accurate. Now Alex could see that Brad had been lying to him all along. It wasn't just the physical state of the gym that was failing, it was the morale of the employees. Many of them had given up on hoping for change because they had been let down so many times before. It became evident that the gym had been neglected, not only in terms of repairs, but also in terms of leadership. Alex felt a deep sense of responsibility for allowing this situation to continue unchecked. It was his company, and he had been blind to the struggles his employees had been facing. The moment of realization was a hard one, but it was also a turning point. Alex knew that if he didn't act quickly, this mismanagement would continue to fester and the gym chain could face irreparable damage. He could no longer sit back and rely on Brad's reports. It was time to take charge, confront the mismanagement head-on, and begin the long process of rebuilding trust within the company. After spending several days undercover, witnessing firsthand the extent of mismanagement, Alex knew it was time to confront Brad. The more he learned, the more disgusted he became with the way the gym had been run. The staff was overworked and underpaid, the equipment was falling apart, and maintenance requests were being ignored. All while Brad continued to reassure Alex that everything was fine, Alex felt a surge of anger. But he also knew that this was the moment of truth. He couldn't let Brad continue to manipulate the situation and undermine the well-being of the staff. That evening, after finishing his shift, Alex sat in the break room with the other employees, letting them vent about their frustrations. It was there, in the middle of their quiet conversations, that Brad walked in. He was his usual dismissive self, laughing, joking, and acting like everything was normal. Alex watched as Brad casually grabbed a soda and leaned against the counter, giving a half-hearted greeting to the staff. When he turned his attention to the employees, the atmosphere shifted immediately. The staff grew quiet, clearly intimidated by his presence. Brad's dismissive attitude toward the employees was clear. He barked orders, made condescending remarks, and threatened to cut hours without cause. He even told a young dishwasher that he owed money for a supposed register shortage, though the boy had already explained that he had nothing to do with it. That's when Alex stood up. He couldn't stand by and watch Brad bully his employees any longer. His voice was steady, but there was a sharp edge to it as he spoke. "That's not how payroll works," Alex said firmly. Brad turned, narrowing his eyes. "Who are you?" he asked, clearly irritated. Alex didn't answer right away. Instead, he slowly removed his glasses, ran his hand through his hair, and let the transformation occur. The room went silent as recognition dawned on Brad's face. The color drained from his cheeks as he finally understood who Alex was. "Philip," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "What the hell?" Alex stood tall, his voice calm but filled with authority. "I've been working undercover in this gym for the past few days. I've seen everything, your lies, your neglect, and your mistreatment of the staff. I trusted you, Brad. I believed your reports and excuses, but now I see the truth." Brad stammered, trying to explain himself, but Alex was having none of it. "You've been stealing from the company, lying to me, and bullying the people who keep this place running," Alex said, his voice growing colder. "This is your last day. Pack your things and leave." Brad's face twisted in frustration as he tried to argue, but Alex's expression remained unwavering. "You're done," Alex repeated, "and I'm going to make sure you never work in this industry again." The tension in the room was thick, and for a moment it seemed like Brad might try to resist, but when Alex's calm authority made it clear that he wasn't backing down, Brad slumped, his shoulders heavy with defeat. Without another word, he turned and left the room, muttering under his breath. As the door slammed behind him, the staff stood in stunned silence. Alex took a deep breath, then turned to face them. "I owe all of you an apology," he said quietly. "I've been blind to what's been happening here, but that changes now." The staff exchanged looks, surprise, skepticism, and, for the first time, a glimmer of hope. It wasn't just the end of Brad's reign, it was the beginning of a new chapter for the gym. One where the employees would be treated with respect and given the support they deserved. With Brad out of the picture, Alex knew the work was far from over. His next step was to implement immediate changes to address the deep-rooted problems he had witnessed firsthand. The first priority was to take care of the staff. They had been overworked and underappreciated for far too long. Alex immediately authorized a full audit of the gym's payroll records, ensuring that every employee who had been shorted on their pay would be compensated in full. He also made it clear that he would personally review the records from the past 6 months to ensure no discrepancies were overlooked. But it wasn't just about fixing the financial issues. Alex knew that the gym needed a complete overhaul in terms of staffing and resources. He approved an increase in the maintenance budget, which had been slashed under Brad's leadership, so that the gym's equipment could be properly repaired or replaced. New cleaning supplies were ordered, and Alex ensured that more staff would be hired to prevent the overburdening of employees. For the first time in a long while, the employees felt a sense of relief. As Alex walked through the gym, checking in with each department, he could see the change starting to take root. He made sure to listen to their concerns, asking the front desk staff, trainers, and maintenance workers for their feedback on how things could be improved. One of the biggest issues was the lack of proper training for new hires, which Alex promised to address by implementing a more thorough onboarding process. He also assured them that management would be more hands-on, with regular checks to ensure that the gym was running smoothly. The changes weren't just about improving the gym's facilities. They were about rebuilding trust with the employees. Alex knew that the culture of the gym had been broken, and it would take time to repair. But the first steps were in motion. The staff was starting to feel valued again, and the gym was beginning to heal. As Alex moved forward with the changes, he made a personal commitment to continue being present and involved, not just in the day-to-day operations, but in the lives of the people who made his business what it was. It wasn't enough to make promises. He had to follow through with action. And that's exactly what he intended to do. As the days passed, Alex found himself reflecting on the whirlwind of changes he had set in motion. The gym was slowly starting to transform, but it wasn't just the physical improvements that stood out to him. It was the shift in the atmosphere. Employees who had once been resigned to their fate were now cautiously hopeful. They spoke more openly about their concerns, and for the first time in a long while there was a sense of pride in their work. Alex had been so focused on expanding the business and delegating responsibilities that he had neglected the most important aspect of leadership, understanding the struggles of the people working beneath him. Seeing the impact of his actions, Alex realized how much he had missed by staying removed from the day-to-day operations. He had relied too heavily on reports and trusted others to manage things, but the reality was that he had been blind to the challenges his staff faced. His time undercover had been an eye-opening experience, and it had forced him to reassess his approach to leadership. No longer would he be content with just looking at numbers or relying on filtered feedback. The changes were just the beginning. Alex knew that real leadership meant being present, understanding the issues firsthand, and acting on them decisively. His commitment to the staff and the gym was no longer just about fixing the immediate problems. It was about creating a culture of respect, transparency, and support. Moving forward, Alex vowed to continue making unannounced visits, staying engaged with his employees, and ensuring that the lessons he had learned from this experience would shape the future of his company. The road ahead would be long, but Alex was ready to lead with a deeper sense of purpose and accountability. The key lesson from Alex's journey is the importance of true leadership and being present in the day-to-day operations of your business. As a CEO, Alex had become disconnected from the reality of what was happening within his gyms, relying too heavily on reports and assurances from his regional manager. His decision to go undercover revealed the depth of mismanagement, neglect, and mistreatment employees had been facing. Alex learned that effective leadership isn't just about delegating tasks or trusting others to manage. It's about actively engaging with your team, understanding their struggles, and addressing issues directly. He also realized that leadership requires accountability, both for yourself and for others. By confronting the regional manager, implementing immediate changes, and rebuilding trust with the staff, Alex showed that actions speak louder than words. The experience also taught him that leadership is not a passive role, but an active, continuous process that requires listening, empathy, and decisive action. Moving forward, Alex committed to staying involved in the day-to-day operations, making unannounced visits, and ensuring the culture of respect and transparency he fostered would last long-term. Ultimately, he learned that true success comes from valuing people and being deeply connected to the heart of the business.